Well, it's a true honor to follow Anish and his excitement, his intelligence, and his compelling call to all of us. I also appreciated his comments around the importance of cybersecurity. In the past year, cybercriminal activity has become significantly more frequent. It has become significantly more sophisticated and significantly more damaging to organizations. We must ask ourselves, I ask myself all the time at Hewlett-Packard, are we secure? You have to wonder, is any agency, any department, any corporation truly secure in this modern world? When you think that we are now facing nation states who are investing heavily in cyber offensive capabilities, their budgets outstrip any of our budgets. Are we secure against our adversaries? If you think about the most sophisticated security companies being breached in the past year, putting to work the most sophisticated tools with probably the smartest people in the organization, we have to ask, are any of us secure? Because for 20 years, we've been spending a lot of money with the goal to be 100% secure. And my message to you is that none of us are 100% secure, and we have to learn to live with that. And we have to learn that IT in and of itself introduces risk into our environments, and we have to learn how to deal with risk and no longer strive to be 100% secure. And I'll show you an example. Well, first off, let's take a look at the modern breaches and how they occur. There's 3 simple steps to the modern breach. The first step is to breach the perimeter. And to breach a perimeter, the most common techniques today, there's really 2 vectors. Taking advantage of flaws or vulnerabilities in applications, using techniques like SQL injection attacks, cross-site scripting, or remote file inclusion. But you're looking for flaws in applications that are customer or internet-facing and penetrating the perimeter through that route. The second is through human vulnerabilities, whether it's social engineering, spear phishing, or compromising an insider. But you breach the perimeter. The next is once you're inside the perimeter, you look for sensitive information, you hop around, you cover your tracks, and you get access to that sensitive data with privileged user access. And then the third step is over a long period of time, you use camouflaging techniques to exfiltrate sensitive data outside the enterprise. 1, 2, 3. Sounds simple? Sounds too simple, doesn't it? Sounds too simple when we hear about these sophisticated attacks. Well, let's take a look at the most sophisticated or purported most sophisticated cyber attack that occurred this past year against a very well-funded, very sophisticated company. A spear phishing attempt targeting a mid-level finance manager in the finance department. Security did its job. Outlook saw it as spam and took that email and put it in the junk mail folder. This business user's curiosity got the better of him, and he actually opened that junk mail folder, and he looked at an email, and he opened it up instead of sending it away to delete it. This is the email he opened up. And there's an attachment with an Excel spreadsheet. It says 2011 recruitment plan. I forward this file to your review. Please open and view it. This came from a job master, or webmaster at a job board. Now, security professionals will look at this and go, something's wrong here. Please open and view it. Our business user's curiosity got the better of him. He opened that attachment, and this is what he saw, an Excel spreadsheet that was empty. He was disappointed, shut it down, deleted the email, and went off and did his work. Security professionals look at cell A1, you see an X. Excel represents an embedded object with an X. That embedded object actually is malware to take advantage of a 0-day vulnerability in Adobe Flash. That vulnerability allowed these perpetrators in the background to install a remote administrative tool, a RAT, called Poison Ivy. That RAT established communication with a known command and control server called goodmansour.com. A known bad command and control server called goodmansour.com. Appropriately named Good. I often say they could have named it Secure, Safe Website. But now, step 1 is completed. That was step 1, breach the perimeter. These bad guys and this was believed to be nation-state sponsored, now have code on the inside of this company. The next thing you do is you do a network scan. And they execute a network scan, which is done every day by IT departments. This is a standard tool inside the arsenal of that company. You do a network scan, you look for open ports, available servers, jump off that host machine that you're on, get onto a new machine, you escalate your privileges, so you now look like an internal IT user within that organization. Step 2 is done, you found your target. Step 3, what they did here, many of you are familiar with zip files. There's actually a file called a RAR file, .rar file, that allows you to not only compress, but encrypt and password protect this information, break it up into small chunks, and you email it outside the enterprise. Step 3 is done. This was one of the more sophisticated cyber attacks, and yet it is so simple to breach the perimeter and get this information out. So what do we do? Well, these guys ended up on the Wall Street Journal, and this is what's happening to a lot of corporations today. So what we are advocating at Hewlett-Packard, and our colleagues are supporting us on, is we need to take a different approach to securing enterprises. It isn't just about 100% security, keep bad guys out and let good people in, create strong perimeters, control access to information. Because if that's only where you invest your money, you will never know that you've been breached like this former company. And it's believed today that 70% of organizations have been or are currently breached. And so we believe you need to also have a security intelligence and a risk management program within your enterprise. And that security intelligence and risk management program is designed to tell you where you have the greatest risk and the greatest vulnerabilities, and also to give you the intelligence to discover if and when you've been breached. How would this have worked earlier? Well, first off, you're dealing with lots of information. And traditionally, we've been dealing with what we call puddles of security information. But now, to solve this problem, we have to collect much more information. And it's actually, this is the big data problem. It is a lake or an ocean of information that you need to get intelligence from. The challenge is, in that last breach, how do you find those little isolated bits of information to protect yourself? Because if you're collecting events across an enterprise, it's not uncommon you have 500 million, 1 billion, 2 billion of these things a day of information. How do you get to what's the real threat? Well, you can do this, and you can do it with better context. So let's look at this example. First off, goodmansour.com has been a known bad command and control server for 10 months prior to this breach. Every company should be monitoring communications from their enterprise to known command and control servers. It's just basic security intelligence. Step 1, where we could have caught this breach. Step 2, network scans are done every day within corporations and agencies and departments. Network scans from a finance manager's department or desktop rarely ever occurs. And yes, you can monitor for a network scan coming from a business user's desktop, and it should set off red flags. I didn't go into great detail, but in this case, privileged user accounts were created. IT administrator accounts were compromised and used when they weren't logged on the network. Another example of an external person using internal credentials but not really being logged in. And then finally, sending packets in a RAR file that you've never seen to a website that you've never seen are red flags that should be going off. And so this is what we call security intelligence. You have to listen and monitor to who and what's on your network to determine if and when you have been breached and to isolate and quarantine it. I equate it to, within the U.S., our nation here, we create strong perimeters. We have border controls, border protection, but we know they're not 100% perfect, and so we have intelligence listening and monitoring to what's happening in the nation, looking for subversive activity. It's the same thing you need to do on your IT networks. Let's talk about risk management. If a senior executive comes to the IT department, pulls out the Wall Street Journal, did you see This breach that happened over here in California, or it happened in Seattle, right? You see the damages happen. Are we secure? Are we secure? Unfortunately, the answer yes is not the right answer, because no one is 100% secure. The answer no is not the right answer, because then your job is insecure. Okay? But frankly, to date, those are the only ranges IT professionals have had. You can't say, I don't know. You can't say, I hope so, or we're spending as much money as we can, right? We believe we have to help you have an in-between answer. And that in-between answer is the ability to measure risk. And the way you measure risk is you got to understand your core business processes. And if you understand your core business processes and their criticality to your business or your operations, you can now assign IT assets to those business processes. And we do know the vulnerabilities of IT assets very well. We know vulnerabilities at the network, the infrastructure, the data, the operating layer, and the application layer. And so now we can help you map vulnerabilities of IT assets to business processes and put in place, I don't know, my pointer doesn't work. We'll put in place a grid of business criticality and risk. And now this allows you to understand which business processes have the greatest vulnerabilities. Well, why is that important? If you have $10,000 to spend on security, where do you spend it? Do you peanut butter across the organization just hoping for 100% security? Or do you invest that money where you have the greatest risk? And we believe we need to help you invest that where you have the greatest risk, and that is to protect your crown jewels that have the greatest vulnerabilities or exposures. And of course, you then have the ability to trend over time. You can look at your users and understand which users are demonstrating the greatest or riskiest behavior. And so what you end up with is this notion of intelligence comes from context. I'm going to cover just one other area that we need to rethink about how we're approaching security. So in the world of security, for the past 20 years, we've been focused on the IP address. We've been focused on devices connected to the network and securing those devices and controlling where those devices go. We believe we need to change the view and move from the IP address to users, applications, and how they intersect with sensitive data. And we need the context around each of those. And so if you understand your critical applications, and you understand who and what is allowed to access them and how they should operate, you understand how that sensitive data is managed, and you understand the users and who they're accessing them, you now can have the security intelligence you need about who and what's on your network. And that's the foundation of what we call risk management and security intelligence. So to wrap up, I'll share our thoughts this way. We have spent the better part of 20 years trying to achieve 100% security by locking down every layer of the IT stack, creating strong perimeters, keeping bad people out, letting good people in. That approach has not worked. And we read about it every week in the paper. Very well-funded, sophisticated companies getting breached. We believe it's time for organizations to invest in a security, intelligence, and risk management approach. Risk management allows you to focus your security dollars on where you have the greatest vulnerabilities and the greatest risk, to measure that and the effectiveness of that. And security intelligence gives you the tools to assume you have been breached and allow you to monitor and detect where you have been breached and to quarantine that as effectively as possible. Thank you.